morning and welcome to Uber. My name's Fleur and today we're going to be learning about how God has a plan for your life, which is very exciting. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has emailed in this week. I'm unable to say all the names, but I'm sure we're going to put a little message just so that you know that you've been, your email's been received and we have seen what you've said. So thank you ever so much for emailing in. So in a minute we're going to have some worship and then after that we're going to have a news bulletin. And then I think we're going to have a very interesting challenge. So we will need you to again email in your answers to that. So please be ready to solve the challenge. And then once you've solved the challenge, we're going to see a video of Joseph, who's our character that we've been learning about. We learned about him last week and we can continue his story today. And we're going to learn a bit more about what happened to Joseph. So, and then after that, we're going to have a Uber leader tell us a little bit about when something went not according to plan in their life. So something that went a little bit wrong, but actually worked out okay. So that'll be interesting to hear that story. So first of all, we're going to hand over to our friends Hillsong Kids for our worship time. So grab your instruments if you want to and join in and let's worship God together.
My life and live by faith and not by sight for you. We're living all for you. Up a bit higher. You are the way, the truth, and the life. We live by faith and not by sight for you. We're living all for you. You are the way. You are the way, the truth, and the life. We live by faith and not by sight for you. We're living all for you. You are the way, the truth, and the life. We live by faith and not by sight for you. We're living all for you. One way, Jesus, you're the only one that I could live for. One way, Jesus, you're the only one that I could live for. One way, Jesus, you're the only one that I could live for. One way, Jesus, you're the only one that I could live for. Come on!
Thank you for joining us on this breaking news on Canaan TV Network. News just in. One of Jacob's sons, Joseph, has gone missing. We've sent one of our reporters, Tom, out into the field to find out more. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Amy. We are here in Dothan where we have had reports of Jacob's youngest son, one of Jacob's youngest sons, Joseph, has gone missing. He was on his way to visit his brothers, and that's when he went missing around 8:20 this morning. The only clue that we have so far is his colourful coat with some animal blood on it. I interviewed the brothers earlier and there was no comment from them, so there is no whereabouts of where Joseph is at the moment. If you have any information at all, please contact us, because Jacob and Rachel are very upset and they want to have some information about their youngest son, Joseph. Thank you. This is Tom reporting for Canaan TV Network. Back to you, Amy, in the studio.
Thank you, Tom, for that report. We will keep you updated with any further developments, but for now, good night.
So we have a little quiz for you, a little puzzle. This is called Guess the Mummy. Here's the mummy. Now, this is one of your Uber leaders. Oh, he moved. So, what we need you to do is to guess who this is. Now then, could it be Amy? Or maybe it could be Will. Possibly not. But you have to guess the Uber leader that is now the mummy. So have a think and send in your answer on an email to me, and you never know, you might get a surprise. You might be right. Go on, guess the mummy.
The Faithful Hall of Fame, Joseph. This is Joseph, who was the son of Israel and Rachel. He was his father's favorite, so his brothers hated him and sold him into slavery. You see, Joseph was taken to Egypt, and Potiphar, one of the Pharaoh's officials, bought him for his household. God was with Joseph, and he did well in Potiphar's house. Oh, Potiphar saw that God made everything Joseph did a success. Aha! So he put Joseph in charge of his whole house.
Yeah!
And God blessed Potiphar's house because of this. Potiphar's wife saw how well Joseph was doing in the house, and she wanted to make him do bad things. Joseph ran away from her because he wanted nothing to do with someone who would try to make him do the wrong thing. This made Potiphar's wife angry, and she wanted to be rid of Joseph. So she lied and made Potiphar believe that Joseph had done the bad things that she wanted him to do. Potiphar burned with anger against Joseph and sent him to prison. While Joseph was in prison, again, he did well, and the warden soon made him responsible for all that was done there. God was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did.
A few years ago, we joined Hope Community Church, and soon afterwards, we felt that God was calling us as a family to leave our home in Lemwade, where we had been for 18 years, to move to Wyndham so that we could be closer to our church family. So we put our house on the market and started looking around Wyndham. We were shocked to see how expensive Wyndham was and started to wonder whether we'd ever find a house as nice as the one that we'd be leaving behind. The move also meant that our son Isaac would have to move from Reetham High School to Wyndham High. Miraculously, God opened up this opportunity by providing a space in Year 9 for Isaac, which was incredible because the school was very popular and we didn't even live in Wyndham at the time. However, just as we were making plans for our future, another bombshell dropped on us. One day, after Isaac started school in Wyndham, I lost my job. Had God lost control? How did this turn of events fit into God's plans? Then one day an estate agent called to encourage us to look at a bungalow on Berwick Road. We hadn't even been looking at bungalows. They were for old people. But we half-heartedly went along. Incredibly, unbeknown to us, the people living in the bungalow at the time were good friends of my sister's, and there standing on a bedside unit was one of my sister's very own paintings. It seemed without a doubt to us that God had found a home for us. After a few days, we put in an offer which was accepted by the owners. We were moving to Wyndham. However, we couldn't find a buyer for our house. We kept reducing the price, but only a handful of people came to view it. We had only until May the 24th to find a buyer, or we would lose our bungalow. It was at this time that we had to hold firm to God's promises, just as Joseph did in the story. In Hebrews chapter 13 verse 5, God made this promise: "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." To be honest, at times it felt that he had left us, but no, he hadn't. God was still in control. Remember, the Bible describes God's character as faithful. In Romans chapter 8 verse 28 it says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." God called us to move to Wyndham, and despite the hurdles, we knew that God was working for us to fulfill his purpose. The experience brought us to our knees, as a family, as a life group, and as a church. had it all gone as smoothly as we would have liked, then our faith would not have grown and we wouldn't be able to declare God's promise to us. Remember, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.
Thank you, Chris, for that amazing story and for those wonderful Bible verses. So we've learnt a little bit more about Joseph's story, and it's quite sad really. Poor Joseph, he was hated by his brothers, he was put in a pit, but God wasn't having that. God rescued him, he became Potiphar's servant, and he was a good servant, and he found favour with Potiphar. But then his wife was unkind to Joseph and accused him of something he hadn't done, and he ended up in prison. So despite Joseph's really awful time, it says in the Bible that God was with Joseph. Even through those bad times, God was there. In Hebrews 13 verse 5, it says, "The Lord has said, I will never fail you, and I will never forsake you." Can you see that? Can you see that promise in Joseph's life so far? It's quite difficult sometimes to see. But God has promised that He can make everything work together for good for those who are called by Him. And Joseph was called by God. No matter how bad things were for Joseph at the time, he was, in the pit, he was a slave, he was unkindly treated, he ended up in prison. God says He will bring things together for good. Sometimes we can't always see that, but God has said it, which means we can believe it. Chris's story shows us that things do work out for good. And God's promises to Joseph, even though they were a long time ago, those promises are true now, and they mean something to us as well now. So let's remember that. Let's remember God's promises this week. Unfortunately, that's all for today. We're back next week for more of Joseph's story and more of God's promises. So do send in your answers to the challenge, who is the mummy? And thank you for sharing your morning with us, and we hope to see you next week. Bye for now.